What is a sloper and why do you need one? Well, if you watch all the way to the end of this video, I guarantee you are going to need a sloper if you love sewing and designing clothes. So designing a sloper can be super hard and technical. And if you want to do that, make sure you check out my video on creating a sloper from scratch and taking all your measurements. There'll be a link for those down below in the description. But that is not this video. I've made it really easy for you. I have designed the sloper pattern for you. What? And how do you get the sloper pattern that I designed for you? Well, you can download it at sewanastasia.com. And right now it's in sizes 0 through 26. And then throughout this video, I'm gonna go over how to tweak it to fit you perfectly. I'm so excited for you guys to be able to dive into designing your own clothes. So the first 25 people to go and order this is going to be free, that's right. And then after that, the pattern is gonna be $10 because, well, put a lot of work into creating this, and that's how you can help support Sew Anastasia. So let's get into creating this custom sloper for you. Grab your tape measure because the first thing we need to do is take some measurements. So you're going to be taking your bust, your waist, and your hip measurement, and then we're going to find those numbers in the chart. Now just circle the numbers that you find in the chart. There's a really good chance you're not a standard size across the chart. And I'm going to show you exactly how to fix that. For the bust, you're going to want to measure at the biggest part of your bust. Now this could differ on the body, so just make sure you're measuring at the biggest point, and also make sure that your tape measure isn't going down and back. Try to make sure it's staying horizontal and parallel to the floor. Next, you're going to measure the waist. You're going to measure your true waist, not perhaps where you wear your pants. So your true waist is when you teacup to the side, and it should be a little indent on the side of your body. Next, you're gonna measure your hips, and this is gonna be the biggest part on your butt or your hips. This is also gonna differ for people. It could be up a little higher, down a little lower, totally depends on your shape. Just measure wherever your circumference is the biggest. So for this demo, I'm going to choose measurements in all the different sizes for the bust, waist, and hips, so that way I can show you how to change the pattern. So if your bust is a 4, your waist is a 10, and your hips are a 14, how do you know what pattern to cut out? Well, you can't just cut out any one of those sizes because the measurements aren't gonna work all the way across. So let's go over exactly how to make your bust a 4, your waist a 10, and your hips a 14. This next step is gonna blow your mind. It's gonna be way easier than you thought. So I'm gonna start with the front bodice. So I know my bust was a 4, so I'm gonna come over here to the green line, and we're gonna start at the underarm seam right here. I'm gonna put my pencil here and my ruler. So now what I need to do is find the 10 for the waist. Our waist is down here, so that's gonna be the blue dotted line. So I'm gonna take the ruler and we're gonna blend to the blue dotted line at the very bottom of the waist. Now what we're gonna do is basically connect the dots. We are going to draw a line from the waist to the bust. Now this is my new side seam where this pencil line is. So now I've got a 4 at the bust and I've got a 10 at the waist. Wasn't that easy? You can do that on any pattern as well. So basically we're blending from one size to another. Now your sizes could be here and here and here and here, wherever they are, you're just blending from one size to another. It is that simple. So now let's blend from our new waist measurement to the hip measurement. So now we're gonna blend from a 10 waist to a 14 hip. So we've got our 10 here and we've got our 14 here. So that means we have to start at the top of the 10 waist. And now we've got to come over 2 sizes to blend to the hip. So we're gonna blend right into the hip here. But now we are not a paper doll with strong corners, right? So we wanna get rid of this corner here and we wanna blend out the hip just a little bit. So even though we have a straight line there, that's gonna be our guide. And now we're gonna grab a hip curve ruler to give us a little bit of shape in the hip. So I'm gonna line up my curved ruler with both points and I'm going to blend it. So that way we get a nice curve for the hip. And now my new cut line is going to start here at the 10, follow the pencil line and just blend right into that 14. So now that you've done the front, you're gonna do the exact same thing to the back bodice and the back skirt. And you might be wondering, what size sleeve do you need to cut out? Well, you're gonna cut out the size sleeve that corresponds with your bust measurement size because the sleeve has gotta fit into the armhole. So now that we basically have it sized, we need to cut it out, sew it up and try it on, but we're probably gonna have a few more adjustments. So keep on watching to the end so that way you can have that perfect sloper that fits and start designing a whole new wardrobe. Now we're gonna lay out all of our fabric, and I'm gonna be creating a pink sloper dress today. So this is just a plain pink cotton, so you wanna make sure you're using a fabric that doesn't stretch. So I have all of my sloper pieces cut out of fabric, and I've marked all of my darts. I've also made my skirt shorter into a mini skirt length because we really just need to fit the waist, the hips, and our bottom. The extra length is just length, and you can always add length when you're designing something. Now it's time to sew up the darts, and there are so many darts in this creating fit. There are 16 darts. If you need help sewing up darts, make sure you check out my video on that. So you're gonna have bust darts, you're gonna have waist darts, you're gonna have elbow darts for the front and the back of the garment. So let's go sew all of these darts first. We've got so many darts, check them all out. Next, we're gonna sew the shoulder seams together at a 1/2 inch, and then we're also gonna sew the skirt to the waist at a 1/2 inch for the front and the back. Let's go sew. We are getting so close. Don't forget to back stitch at the beginning and the end of your shoulder seam. Now, if you wanted, you could do this with a basting stitch, but I'm going to be doing this with a permanent stitch. Now we're going to sew the bodice and the skirt together. 1/2 inch seam allowance. It is a really coming together. So we've got the front of the sloper here. We've got the back. Your back should be open. We're gonna put a zipper in the back. And now what we need to do is grab your sleeves, and we're gonna set in the sleeves, which means we need to do those 2 rows of basting stitches at the sleeve cap. And because this is a fitted sleeve, those basting stitches are gonna help round out and curve the shoulder. And I've got a whole detailed video on setting in sleeves. So if you need a refresher, make sure you check out that video. I'll put a link down below in the description for you. If you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you subscribe to Sewing Anastasia so that way you know when all the new videos come out. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. Now let's get back to making this sloper dress. So we're gonna put those basting stitches in the sleeve cap and not the armhole, just to be clear. And just make sure you're sewing it with right sides together, starting at your underarm seam and working your way all the way around this curve. So now I'm gonna add my 2 rows of basting stitches here on the sleeve cap. Don't forget, you're not going to backstitch. So we've got 1 row in, and now let's add 1 more row. Lift up your foot and pull it out. And now we have our 2 rows of basting stitches, and we are ready to set this into the armhole. So we're just gonna give these a little pull and cinch it up. Now I have a normal straight stitch in. We are gonna make sure we back stitch when we sew the sleeve into the armhole. Back stitch and cut, and then make sure you're gonna do the same thing to the other side. We are so close to finishing this up. I cannot wait to try this on and see how it fits, and we're gonna go over more details on making it a perfect fit. But right now, we're gonna put in our invisible zipper right up center back. You just wanna make sure you do this before you sew up the side seams, because it's so much easier to put in a zipper when everything's flat and when you're not working in the round. I'm gonna go put in that invisible zipper. If you need help putting in an invisible zipper, make sure you check out my video on that. Our last step is gonna be sewing up the side seam and the underarm seam. So I'm gonna go put in the zipper, and I'll be right back. Our invisible zipper is in, and it's looking beautiful. Our waist seam here even matches up. Look at that. We are looking good. So now what we're gonna do is sew up the underarm seam and the side seam all at the same time. Make sure you're lining up your underarm seam and the seam at your waist when you're doing this. And then we get to try it on, see how it fits, and go over those techniques for taking it in and making it perfect. So I'm gonna sew from the hem to the waist, to the bottom of the arm, to the wrist. And we are gonna do this all in one stitch, by just pulling this straight out. So we're gonna backstitch at the beginning and the end and make the side seam nice and secure, and we are using a 1/2 inch seam. Now you're gonna do the exact same thing to the other side. We did it, we finished our sloper dress. I'm so excited to try this on, but first let's put it on the dress form, talk about it a little, and then I'll put it on and we can address what might happen with fit issues and how to transfer them to your pattern. So we've got our sloper dress and it definitely fits you, so go ahead, try it on. And now let's assess it, because you probably need to tweak it here and there, but that's totally normal, unless you really lucked out and it fits you perfect on the first try. So let's go over what you're looking for and how you might go ahead tweaking it. So what you want to look for a good fit is making sure that your darts aren't going too far past the fullest part of your bust. So these ones, they look like I could lower it maybe about a 1/2 inch. So you can put a little mark there, go to the pattern, lower the dart. You also want to make sure that your waistline is actually sitting at your waist and it's not pulling up, or you're getting all kinds of like gaps in here. If you're getting all kinds of like creases in here, your waistline is probably off. So we want to make sure that your waistline is nice and straight for you. You also want to make sure that your shoulder length is the proper length. If you've got your shoulder tip hanging way off the end of your shoulder, we need to pull that back a little bit for you. And everything should lay nice and smooth across the top chest of the bodice. If you've got funny pull lines in here, it possibly could be too tight. If you've got a lot of extra, it could be too loose. So we need to adjust that. And then your back should be nice and smooth as well. If you're ending up with any wrinkles back here where it's bunching up, that means you need to shorten your waist. And again, your darts should line up. If they're not lining up, we need to correct that. And everything should be nice and smooth. You shouldn't see any like crazy pull lines happening. If you've got pull lines, it's time to let it out a little bit. Now this one is a little big, so this shouldn't be skin tight on you, but it should be a nice shell of your body. This one's on a dress form that's a little smaller than me, so I knew it was gonna be big on this dress form, but you can always pin it to take it in and then transfer that over to your pattern. And if you want full details on how to take that in and transfer it to your pattern, make sure you check out my video on that. The links will be down below, in-depth instructions for you. Here it is. Here is the sloper dress on me. So overall, it fits really well. I might take it in a smidge in the waist, but that's super easy to do and transfer over to the pattern. It's also in that other video I mentioned. So now that you have your sloper dress, you can start pattern drafting. So you can start following my tutorials, you can pick up a pattern drafting book, you can just start having fun creating styles now that you have your basic blocks. Thanks so much for watching Sew Anastasia today, and don't forget that you can get this pattern at sewanastasia.com and tailor it to your size. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, give it some applause, and leave a comment down below. I'd love to know what you thought about creating the sloper dress and all those other details involved in it. And if you've made your sloper dress, I would love to see photos about it. And if you have questions, leave them down below. I will get back to you as soon as I can. And don't forget, I teach sewing classes in my design studio, so check those out at sewanastasia.com. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.